Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deepsouth Homestead on Porch Time again today. Had to take a little bit of a break, guys. It's a 112 degree heat index right now, and it's a little uncomfortable. But now the breeze, right when I sit down to do Porch Time, the wind has started blowing a little bit to relieve me, but I don't have the muff on the mic, and it's a good possibility that you'll hear some wind noise in it. So I apologize for that. We're going to try to work through it. I have caught so much flack about the last videos I've done about food shortages, and I'm okay with that, because you know what, it is what it is. It is real. I just got through looking at USDA reports on food shortages for 2019 in America, and it's pretty alarming. I'm going to talk about facts or fiction about this lifestyle and dealing with the food shortages and dealing with the looming crisis that's coming on in our country here today, the weather anomalies and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of facts, and then there's some fantasies about some of this stuff. And I want to kind of address a little bit about it. When you're younger, you don't tend to see everything. Whenever I was growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, through that era, we had the oil crisis in the 70s and, then the other crises. There's several different crises that happened in our country. And even though I knew it, and I knew there was no work, and I knew that the jobs was out, a lot of my buddies went up the East Coast and went up into the northern states to go to work and stuff like that. And I didn't think anything about it. I'm like, well, it'll get better, whatever, no problems. And there was food shortages even during those times. There was shortages of food and some commodities. But at the same time, I was raising what I ate during that time. I had my own farm at that time, and didn't think anything about it. And I try to look at a lot of the comments that I get, and I try to understand that these people are probably, and a lot of them probably in the same boat that I was in. They just don't see it. I didn't see it then. It's just that now we are in a grand solar minimum. That is the beginning stages of a 400-year cycle. And it's not that the weather people are making this up. Scientists are not making this up. This is cylindrical. If you go back, this is historical. Just study history. That's all you have to do. You can't make up history. History's already been made. It is what it is. If you go back and you look, and what we're going through is exactly what happened to other periods of history. So we have that to build our beliefs on. Now, is it going to be exactly like it was then? No, it's not going to be exactly like it was then. But if we go back and we look at what the sun was doing then, what it's doing now, what was happening on the earth then, what's happening now, the similarities lead us to believe that we could be facing certain issues. These are facts. Now, there's a lot of things that we go through here on this earth, and especially in this type of lifestyle, that's just fiction. It's just not real. There's it's been a week ago, I guess, we watched a video one night on Amazon Prime, because I'm a member of that. We watched it talking about a family, and we watched a movie of a family leaving a city, going out into the wilderness and building a home. And sitting there watching that, I remembered it from when I was younger. And boy, when I was younger, that was just like, whoa, everybody, this is cool, and all this kind of stuff. Now that I'm older, I sit back and I look at that, and I see everything that's wrong with it. It's a fantasy lifestyle to think that we can leave a big city, we can go out in the country, and we can make friends with the wildlife and the animals, and we can run with the bears, and we can play with them and the cougars, and we can be friends with the cougars, and all this kind of stuff. It was a fantasy lifestyle. That's not real. That doesn't work. It's not true. That we can catch our fish out of the lakes that's there, and we can plant our gardens, and nothing's going to eat them, and all this kind of stuff. We're always going to have food, and there's always going to be a plane coming in to bring us supplies every so often. It's going to bring us our mail and all this kind of stuff. It's all fantasy, guys. It's all fantasies. And what I've done is I've moved that from then until now. And I've tried to look at what's going on in so-called this quote-unquote homesteading lifestyle. Now, 4 years ago, I didn't even know what the word homesteading. I knew what homesteading meant because I went to school and I studied homesteading. I knew that people could homestead 160 acres. The government would give it to you for free. You had so many years you had to improve it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I knew what homesteading was. But to say that we're homesteaders now in the society that we live in, I did not get that. And as I began to look into it, I'm like, whoa, this is the lifestyle I've been living all along. Yet they have a name for it. We called it just living. But yet it was called homesteading. So when I began to see things happening, and it isn't just that I saw things happening, I've been trying to teach what I'm teaching on Deep South Homestead since the early 80s. I've just not found the right avenue. And then when YouTube, I landed YouTube and figured it out, I was like, the Spirit. And I'm going to tell you, it was the Spirit that has led me to do this. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. If it was left up to just me, I wouldn't even do this. Because it takes so much of my time to do this. Mine and Wanda's time. We spend 5 to 6 hours a day just taking care of YouTube. On top of trying to take care of a farm, raise animals, raise a garden, build our cabin, excuse me, all these type things we do around our YouTube video. But the Spirit, it's the Spirit that won't leave me alone on this. Because you have to understand, I started out teaching these facts in churches because then church people would listen and they understood biblical things that was happening, and they could see in Daniel and Ezekiel and Revelations and Jeremiah and Joel and all these Bible books about things that was happening, Revelations and stuff. They could see and they could understand. But that just began to fade after a while. And those facts just went out the window and people began to have a fantasy. The economy was booming. We pulled out of the recession of the 70s and 80s and our economy started booming again. And then bam, 2008, the housing bubble busted again. And I was right in the middle of it in construction. And of course, I didn't really feel it because I had huge contracts and I didn't worry about it. But it was real nonetheless, because there was tons of people calling me looking for jobs. And I hired a lot of people during that time. But the thing is this, guys. There's some things that are fantasies about this lifestyle. Quitting your job and coming out to live on a farm and raise your food and raise your animals and surviving off the land is a fantasy. Can it be done? Yes. Does it take a lot of money? Yes. Do you make a lot of money doing this? No. There's so many fantasies about this, thinking that I can get up in the morning and I can do what I want to do that day. I don't have to do anything I want to do that day. All I've got to do is just get up and do what I want to do. That's a fantasy. If you truly live this lifestyle, every moment of your day is involved in this lifestyle, whether you're canning, whether you're preserving, whether you're planting, whether you're preparing, whether you're fixing fences, whether you're tending animals, whatever it is, every moment of your life is involved in this somehow or other. Will you ever reach a point where it levels out? And the answer to that is probably no. You probably will not. The thing about it is it's a fantasy for people to think that they can live this lifestyle and have a few animals and have a little garden and everything's going to be, like the wilderness family. It's all going to be hunky-dory and we're not going to have any problems. That's a fantasy. It's not real. When you get up in the morning, I get up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock every morning and fix breakfast. And by the time I fix breakfast, I have to be out the door by 6:30, no later. And I've got to be rolling to get things done. I'm going to get done that day. Now, I do watch a lot of YouTube channels of younger couples that's really blowing and going at homesteading. And I look at rather than watch their channel, I read the comments more than anything else. And so many people say, man, I watch you go to work all day and you come home after work and you still run a homestead. And thumbs up to you. And but they're young. When I was younger, I worked a full-time job, ran my own full-time jobs, came home in the evenings, had 29 head of cattle that I took care of. I had gardens that I took care of. I had pigs. I had chickens. I took care of all of them. I built the infrastructure around me. I would work until way up in the night. I would burn the candle at both ends. I did that for years and years. That is facts. It can be done when you're younger. I'm older now. I get up in the morning now. I'll work till about 10 o'clock. And it comes to an end for me because the heat overtakes me. I can't stay out in the heat like I used to. And once the heat overtakes me, I got to go in. I've got to cool off. And maybe if I'm lucky and it cools off enough that evening, I can get back out and I can work another hour or so in the afternoon. So my schedule has slowed down now tremendously. That's facts. The older you get, the less you can do. The younger you are, the more you can do. And that's just life, guys. That's not a fantasy. That is facts. To be young and to not prepare for your future like you should, a lot of people call that ignorance and stupidity. A lot of it's just fantasy because we think when we're younger that things are going to always go on the way they are and that things will be just fine. And that is a fantasy because things are always changing. Everything in your life will always change. There will be an LCE in your life at some point. I've had some hard ones in my life. I've had to learn how to walk 3 times in my life because of accidents. I've lost a spouse at a very young age. These are facts, guys. These are LCEs that happen in your life. Life-changing events that happen. You have no control over them. They just happen. They're unseen. Nothing can change that. But when some of these LCEs happen, they change you forever. Which means that your homesteading will change also. And that is a fact. That's not a fantasy. But to think that you're going to do what you're doing at a young age all the way to your old is a fantasy because it doesn't work like that. The body breaks down. Things happen. There's no way we can keep the pace up our whole entire life. Now, there are some people, I give it, that has really good health that's able to go way up into their 80s and some of them even into their 90s I knew that were gardening. And I mean, they couldn't do it at the rate they did when they were younger, but they could still do it. And, thumbs up to these guys. God was good to you, gave you a long industrial life. You was able to achieve a lot. Those people are out there, but they're very far and few between. To think that this lifestyle is peaches and cream is a fantasy. The lifestyle we call homesteading is a very hard lifestyle, especially if you really do it. My advice to anyone who's homesteading is keep your day job. If you have a job, keep it, because homesteading costs lots and lots of money. I don't even know how much money I've dumped into my farms and my animals. It's an astronomical amount of money, I'm sure. If I seen it, it would probably scare the devil out of me. So if you have a daytime job, you probably need to keep it. And don't get rid of it, because it's a fantasy to think that you can live this life without some sort of income, because you can't. Everybody has to have an income. There's so many people out there that literally, I don't even know how to explain some of these things that are fantasies, guys. I mean, I have so many people that make comments to me and say, well, you know, if you would just do this, and I'm old enough and smart enough to know and look at it and go, there's no way possible that that could work. And the reason I know is because I've tried it. I've had a lot of trial and error in my life. That's one reason I know what will work and what won't work for me. Finding YouTube was probably one of the better things that happened in my life. Because not only did it give me an avenue which to put the information out there that the Spirit was bothering me to put out, but it gave me the opportunity. I've been a teacher my whole life. I've taught lots of different classes on lots of different things. It gave me an avenue to continue to teach. I don't profess to be a know-it-all, because I'm learning every day. Going into this grand solar minimum, I'm learning that a lot of the practices that I grew up doing farming doesn't work anymore. I'm having to completely change everything I know. Full sun crops are no longer full sun crops because the radiation from the sun is killing them. So I'm having to learn to adapt to climate changes that's happening around me. And is these man-made? Some of them are. Some of them are just cylindrical. They're historical. They're just going to happen because these cycles happen in history. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything that happens out here is man-made. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything that happens is cylindrical and natural, because I think it's a mixture of both. It's up to us to figure out how to make it. Every generation has had to do this. It's nothing new. It's facts. Things are going to change. Now, the reason I say that, as I know this for a fact, when I was a child, around 10 to 12 years old, my daddy would take me squirrel hunting because my daddy loved to squirrel hunt. Squirrel season in South Mississippi used to always open on October the 1st. My dad would get me up on October the 1st. We would put on heavy jackets, and we would go to the woods, and there would be a frost. It almost never failed. That doesn't happen anymore. That tells me that during that period in my life, during the late 60s, mid 60s, that the weather was different then than it is now. Because now here it don't even get cold until sometimes closer to Christmas. October the 17th, 1979, I had a massive car accident that I was supposed to have died in. I was thrown over 100 feet out of an automobile that flipped 5 times. Not only just me, but my sister was in there with me. She came out with me because I had a hold to her. That morning, October the 17th, 1970, I'm sorry, it was 1970. No, it's 1977, because it's been a long time for me, guys. It was 1977. I was a senior in high school at that time. I was fixing to graduate, because it was my graduating year, 1977, that this accident happened on October the 17th. I was dressed in a full fleece jacket because it was so cold that morning and the sides of the roads were iced over. Which tells me that the weather was different then than now. Now we don't even have any ice or heavy frost until, like I said, late November, maybe early December we start to get it now. And now they're talking about with the grand solar minimum, these things are going to start coming back in and start happening again. So, I haven't been back to look at the 60s to see if some sort of solar minimum was happening then or not. Evidently something was going on because the weather was a lot colder then. As a baby growing up, as a young child, it was so cold in our houses. My mom and dad would hang quilts across the doors and we would all stay in one room in the house with a wood heater going because it was so cold. 1963, it snowed 18 inches here. It's never done that since then. We've got maybe 1 or 2, 3 inches or something like that occasionally. Never since then. So some kind of freak weather was going on then. My daddy told me about times during, after the Great Depression when he was a young kid, his grandmother died. There was so much ice that the cedar trees were bowed over, touching the ground. There was so much ice and snow here. So there was weather anomalies going on then. Nothing's changed. Those are facts. Homesteading was what my dad and them done. They were sharecroppers. It was very hard then. It was a fact. There was no EBT cards or commodities or anything like that. My dad talked about stamps they had to get. They were only allowed to have so much sugar, so much flour, so many pairs of shoes. They were given tokens and stamps and stuff like this because the war got to be real hard and heavy. And you couldn't get inner tubes, rubber for inner tubes and stuff like that was rationed. People say these kind of things can't happen. Yes, they can because they've already happened. It's nothing new. Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. These things have already happened in the past. They can very well happen again. And the things that's different between then and now we have many more billion people on the face of the earth than we had then. The difference then is people knew how to survive. They knew how to grow things because most of them were sharecroppers or worked in logging camps and different things. Nowadays, nobody knows how to do nothing because we've been dumbed down a lot. It's not our own fault. It's just the system that has happened. So there's a lot of facts. There's a lot of fantasies about the homesteading lifestyle. To think that we're going to always be able to go to a grocery store and get our food is a fantasy. I looked at a USDA 2019 report a while ago before I actually done this. For 2019, 7% of the United States population, and this was done back in the early part of the year. This is not up to date, actually. It said then that 7% of the United States people would go hungry by the end of this year. Now, that was before we knew about all the El Nino issues happening and the floods and the droughts and the croplands being devastated and all that. I really haven't been able to find an up-to-date one through the U.S. Department of Agriculture that talks about what percentage yet, because what I did find is they're actually waiting till the holidays to actually put out another chart stating crop losses. So at the beginning of the year, they were predicting 7% of the people in the United States would go to bed hungry because of food shortages this year. And that was based on a global thing now, not just here in America. I'm thinking it's probably going to be, just from what I've looked in other charts from other places, it's going to be somewhere closer to 13% this year. That's a Danny guess. I have no facts to back it up other than what I know and what I've researched. I'm just guessing at 13%. I will be curious to find out what it ends up being because of the devastation to all the cropland. Lots of people go, well, I see corn planted everywhere. I don't see a food shortage coming on. Guys, lots of this cropland that you see planted with corn is not for human consumption. A lot of it is for fuel. A lot of it is for animal crops, which I think is totally stupid because if the animals eat it, then we consume the animals and we end up getting it in our system anyway. But a lot of these things, if you look through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they'll say these crops are not for human consumption. Those are facts that I read about. It's a fantasy to think that things will always continue to go on the way that they're going on, and nothing will ever change. That's a fantasy. So it's up to us as people to determine, in this lifestyle and with the food shortages and the weather anomalies and all that kind of stuff, what is facts and what is fantasies. Is the solar minimum real? Yes, they've always been real. They've happened throughout since the beginning of time. The sun has always done what the sun does. That's cylindrical. It's going to happen every so many years. There's nothing we can do about that. That's facts. Thinking that nothing will ever change and that the United States economy will always go on being great like it always is, that is a fantasy. Thinking that you can live the homesteading lifestyle and quit your day job and enjoy this lifestyle and be like the wilderness family and just move from the city into the wilderness and live a happy life ever after, that's fantasy. Living the homesteading lifestyle is very hard work. You're going to have to be up from daylight to dark. You're going to have hard days, you're going to have cold days, you're going to have hot days, you're going to have hurt days, you're going to have sick days. You're going to have all these problems that's going to happen in your life. That's facts. So guys, today, this video has been about fantasies and facts about this lifestyle and all the stuff that we're facing today. I don't know if it's been educational for you or not. I don't know if you agree with it or not. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm just living the life at Deep South Homestead. And I'm going to continue to live this life as long as God gives me the ability to live this life. And I'm going to teach as long as I'm able to teach or until everything is taken away. So, guys, with that being said, I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope the rest of your week will be blessed and that you'll enjoy the goods and the life that God has given you. So thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.